Good afternoon to you. Still having the attention because I know topic of artificial intelligence can be intense and after a couple of hours, and for you all being here. So I would like, to start just introducing you briefly from my perspective how I perceive you. I stalked you all on LinkedIn and Googled you, and try to figure out how you present yourselves and who you try to let us know who you are. So, Sonja, again, you're from Hungary. You are now living in London. This is important because I will come back to this. And you're head of talent at EF. So if you don't know EF, Entrepreneurs First is one of the most amazing incubator/accelerator programs out there. And I just say this because they have a really, really cool program. So she's representing them. Then Mojan, you're from Iran. And you're an entrepreneur, you're a networker, you're a multiplicator. You even described yourself, I couldn't translate it, I would translate it like a generalist, yes? You say you do thousands of things, and I really understand this, and I get most of the entrepreneurs out here know this problem if you're stuck in one box and you're more than one. And you also do women in tech, women in AI, so this fits too. And you're currently living in Paris. So another hub represented here, which is important for our discussion. Doe? No, it was, you said like Doe Jones, so like Doe. Yes, I tried to. So you're Dutch, but not living there anymore. You have a master in artificial intelligence, if I got it right. Yes. Yes, which is, I think, cool. So, you know, very in hindsight, yes, very smart decision. And yet you need to have your microphones, otherwise we don't hear your answer.
Well,
you work for Google.
Nothing that I learned at that time is relevant anymore, so.
And you're a Google guy, or former Google guy, and work for Google like everywhere.
For what?
You work for Google, Switzerland, India, Australia?
Yes.
Yes, good. And you had your own NLP, ML, so natural language processing and machine learning company. So you're actually a founder in the space, what we call today AI, what wasn't AI maybe back then.
Sure, let's go with that.
Yes. And what I like to mention is, you have several artificial life projects.
Also correct.
Yes, and I will come back to this. And now you, Aaron, from Canada. Even you told me your family is like all over the place. Yes, and you have physics and mathematics background, which I think is a very cool skill set if you do something with data today. You came 2015 to Berlin and working for SoundCloud, which is in the media too, but not for your work, I guess. Good. And I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an investor, I like to organize events, I love artificial intelligence. And our topic here is the AI landscape in Europe. And the goal for me is to figure out today, what do we need to have more artificial intelligence companies in Europe? And that's my goal, and let's see if we figure this out. So as an introduction, I did some research before, and we have 1,000 artificial intelligence companies in the United States. Or companies who claim to be AI, and we know if it's labeled AI, it's not always AI inside. So 1,000 companies claim to do AI there, 500 of them are in Silicon Valley. In contrast, we have 600 AI companies in Europe. 220 of them are in the UK, mainly in London. Roughly 100 of them are in Germany, mainly in Berlin, and 60 of them are in Paris. And outside of Paris, there seems to be no startups. Yes? So we have represented the three major hubs in Europe for AI. We have London here, we have Berlin here, and we have Paris here, so this gives a good basis for this. So as a starter, please give me briefly your definition of artificial intelligence. We start with the lady.
So for me, artificial intelligence is... good question. I think that artificial intelligence is the next electricity for us. And I think that's what we're calling now artificial intelligence. Maybe later, in like 10 years, it's not going to be artificial intelligence. And so we, in terms of technical aspect, what we have around us, that we capture them and we stock them as data, can be used by algorithms that makes us to have applications and programs, and that's how artificial intelligence can help us to build things that we cannot do it ourselves. So I think that's my definition.
Okay. Sonja?
I was going to keep it really, really simple in that I think AI is intelligence that isn't in a human form, as in it's artificial. So we're trying to create human intelligence is the only intelligence we know at the moment, and we're trying to recreate that without humans.
Aaron?
So normally I would define artificial intelligence as teaching machines to do inference. But the side that's missing is the generative side. So often artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms are very good at making decisions or making recommendations, but they're also very good at generating art and creating and creative expression. And so maybe instead of just saying artificial intelligence is teaching machines how to make inference, I would say that artificial intelligence is teaching machines how to be creative.
I think artificial intelligence is quite meaningless as a term. I mean, I like machine learning because it's, and then we can say like, oh, we have loads of data and we have some algorithm that learns something from this either to classify or generate. But, I mean, the first program in the 50s that learned how to play tic-tac-toe, I'm sure that was sold as artificial intelligence.
Okay, good.
What about you?
Well, the easy answer is everything what human cognition is currently doing, so human thinking work, when it's done by a machine, this is an artificial intelligence. The more technical answer is, for me, it's a set of algorithms which are able to gather data, make own decisions, learn, self-improve within a given framework. So it always depends on the audience which one I use.
Magic.
So, first question, Sonja. You're from London, and London is the biggest hub for artificial intelligence in Europe. Even people say, well, this is a financial district and so on. Tell us, and living there, why is this? Why do we have, with 1/3 of all AI companies being placed in London?
I think that's a really interesting question, and something that we're constantly trying to find the answer to as well. We do a lot of expansion work in Europe, and I think the startups that are appearing in Berlin or Switzerland, etc., are very, very different from the startups that happen in London. I think there is a very different attitude to both careers and work in London, in that people, it's almost like there's this race to survive and build something very, very big. And I think also the way people think about ambition in London is slightly different. And though it's still not at the same level as Silicon Valley, where people are insanely ambitious and you can be Elon Musk and tell everybody you're going to put people on Mars, if you were to tell your friends you're going to build $1 billion company, they might be slightly more skeptical. And so I guess at EF, that's one of the boundaries we're trying to shift. So A, the way people think about ambition and what is and isn't possible. And so I think London's attitude to ambition is slightly different to the attitude to ambition in continental Europe, where I think work-life balance is a lot more important. I don't know whether that's good or bad, but I think it's very difficult to build the next Google or Apple or Amazon working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And so I think there's just a very different push towards ambitions and careers in general.
Okay. And Mujan. Yes, the next hub, Paris. So Macron was publicly, again, in the media, like trying to attract a lot of people from the UK and saying we need more technology in Europe and so forth. Describe us the AI scene in Paris, how you see it.
In general, the startup ecosystem in Paris has evolved a lot. When I went to France, it was 5 years ago, and I can say, like, in only 5 years, in only the last 2 years, it has increased drastically, and it has become very, very, very dynamic. You might know, like, a Station F, the biggest incubator in France that has just opened by Roxane Verza, and Xavier Niel also is helping a lot, behind that. And so the startup ecosystem has grown so fast. And by the AI ecosystem, it's very new. Since last year, I know that there are many initiatives that have started. There's one initiative called France's AI, and the last year it was the first edition of it, that they gather all the influencers, all the people who work in AI for that conference. And also there are more and more startups now working there. I was also looking at the list of startups, so it's around 55, something like that. and like in different areas, very focused on for e-commerce and fintech. And yeah, it's very, very booming. We have also a lot of ventures. Is AI, for example, Isai is one of the funds that invest incredibly in AI. And Macron also is also meeting a lot with startups in AI, and he's supporting, and he's very pro artificial intelligence.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, you made it all the way over from Canada to Berlin. Tell us why you chose Berlin and why you're still here.
Cheap rent, techno.
I mean, you have, to make it a little bit longer, you have a music background and you're working for a music company. Okay, so the techno still works here?
Sorry, what was that?
The techno still works here? I heard that the club scene moved on.
I mean, you know, the club scene is, you know, so firmly integrated in the city, might as well be some kind of like virus that permeates all the streets. But I mean, realistically, you know, when you're deciding where one wants to work, or you know, it's often a decision about opportunity, lifestyle, and your life experience. And if you compare, like, what are my prospects of like living in San Francisco, where I get the opportunity to spend like $5,000 on rent in a closet and like work to death basically every day, or I can go to New York and just be like stressed out for 10 hours a day because like all my friends have 5 jobs, or I can go to Berlin where there's like tons of opportunity, amazing, creative and smart people, great companies, and a lifestyle that permits some kind of like dialectical combination of relaxation and insane partying. So, I mean, it was a pretty obvious decision for me.
And that's why London is winning.
So, Sonja said ambition is important. How is ambition going along with this lifestyle?
I mean, I think this is like each person, my personal belief is just like each person is going to have motivations to work for various different reasons. Like, I am not an ambitious person. So like, you know, I do not want to be the leader of this or that. Like, I want to optimize for like, I make terrible decisions all the time about my career because I'm very interested in like, in problems and technology and ideas and people and these kinds of things. And other people are really ambitious, and that's how they optimize for. And definitely like a city like, if you're an ambitious person, a city like London is going to really benefit you there. But also, if you're an ambitious person, Berlin is like a fruitful ground for that. You know, there's lots of investment, there's lots of people, and all these things. So, I mean, for me, ambition is not such a motivator, but it may be and is for other people. And I think Berlin is a place where you can be ambitious, and it's also a place where you can go and smoke weed in Gorlitzer Park and talk about machine learning.
Yes, yes. Bild Zeitung even has a publication where you can buy it. Yes. So, with my experience, I have done a lot of investments before AI. I do a lot of investments now for AI. What I learned is that they are different. For AI, I look for teams who have research background. Yes, then you need a startup, then you need the VCs to finance it, and then you need a special kinds of clients and buyers at the end. So, though, what do you see as a difference if you run an AI company versus non-AI, so e-commerce, mobile, software as a service, and so on? I mean, you have run an AI company and you have experience before. Do you see the differences, AI versus non-AI?
So I think we're sort of on a breaking point here. It used to be really important to really understand from the ground up how your AI stack works, and we're seeing these you know, tools like TensorFlow or Keras or something that make it much easier to build networks that perform without, you know, having to have a research background. Now, if you're going to be in an AI company that is actually building technology for third parties, then this might still be very useful to really understand what, you know, the full stack of what you're doing. But if you're applying, like the sort of thing that we were doing at Terposo, if you're applying existing networks on, existing techniques on large amount of data that you get, and you know, for your own use, I think that is becoming less important. Is that an answer to your question?
Okay.
An answer.
I jump further, but I come back to you. Mujan, what I felt is we do not have enough women in tech, because most AI out there, it's programmed, yes, and it's trained, and the data is biased. So normally the data should be represented of a neutral worldview, but if only men do it and only white men do it, yes, you come out with machines who think that a certain kind of, for example, woman in a beauty contest, it's always a blonde one is the most beautiful one, which can be wrong. So you're fighting, working for that we have more women in AI. How do you want to achieve this?
So what you talk about is the white man syndrome, that it's only men with white skin, blue eyes who are working on these algorithms, and the data that is captured. So of course it's like it's not gonna be a generic. So it's not gonna miss one part of 50% or like part of the population. So the programs coming out is going to impact the whole whole world. So it's an important thing that it's not only about diversity. It's not only about gender diversity. It's about diversity in general that we need to focus on. And like in any team, you need to have different profiles. Like coders, they need to know about ethics, they need to know about philosophy, everything. And especially for women in AI, that's why our team also is very diverse. We have like someone who's working. She has a PhD in AI, and she's also a really good researcher. But she's not. She doesn't feel that she needs to express herself. She's in the laboratory, and the truth is, many of the women that we have working on AI, we do have many women, but maybe they are not that visible because mostly the data scientists are in the laboratories. And the reason that we have more men on the stage is because I think that there's maybe the opportunity problem that we don't consider it, and women, they don't want to grasp it, or they don't feel the opportunity to do that. So with women in AI, what we're trying to do is to give women the opportunity to be visible, to be in the front stage, and take a part in the whole journey, because AI is going to impact everything. And the contest you said, there was a contest called Beauty.ai, and the result was that the white women are the most beautiful because the data was captured by historical data around the internet and everything. And that's also gender discrimination that we're creating by AI.
So you say it's a question of self-confidence?
There are many questions. There is one self-confidence that we did a research, we did a meetup with all the women only, and the result was that many of them, they don't feel confident being on a stage, being speakers, and many of them, they don't think the tech majors is for them. So mostly they do maybe fashion or art or something like that. And it's the same thing in tech. We have only, in the school that we have in France, and we are partnering up with them to do some sort of a program for women to train them for AI. And that school has only 8% women. And that's one of the biggest coding schools. And in general, the percentage of women is 14%. And the reason I actually co-founded Women AI was that I organized my first hackathon, and it was the first time actually I was in touch with AI, and I realized that I'm the 5th woman out of 100, and that was a painful moment for me. So we said, no, we should definitely do something about it. So it's education, it's self-confidence, it's believing that there are opportunities to take. And that's what we do with the Women AI.
So Sonia, you're a head of talent, and I think my numbers can be wrong. I think you screen over 2,000 people a year or 6,000 people a year, so a lot of them. What is the percentage of women in your program? Because I invested in some companies, I screened, and I never met one, except that your team is very female, and you're one of your managing directors and so far.
So I actually think this issue is like really, really important to us at EF. And Matt and Alice, the founders of EF, they also set up a company called Code First Girls that teaches women at university and out of university how to program for free. I think I was going to disagree that I don't actually think it's a confidence issue. I think there's just simply not enough women in technology, and I think it's an issue that we all need to tackle together, and it probably starts at a very young age, like not beyond university years, but from like upbringing. I think it's also a matter of how women are perceived in general and how they're treated. A lot of women don't want to work in environments where they'll be the only woman out of 50 men in a tech group, and obviously they'll be referred to as bossy instead of confident, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's like a ton of problems we need to deal with. At EF, so just one correction on the introduction. So we're actually a company builder, so we're not an accelerator. We build companies from scratch. In terms of our statistics, and we are doing a lot towards this, we have about 15 to 20% women that join us on the program to build companies with us. We're doing a lot of initiatives focused on female entrepreneurs and how to engage more women in entrepreneurship in general. I think we're also in a really difficult position in that a lot of women get very quickly snapped up by the really large corporates such as the Googles, Amazons, Facebooks, etc., which means that if they have very promising offers on the table, it's really difficult for them to turn those down to then go start a career that is incredibly uncertain, especially if they want to have families, etc., etc. So I think it's like a really, really important issue that we all need to tackle together. But about 15 to 20% women join us to build companies. Okay. All technical women.
So I move on because now we have the time and I want to tackle the question of Brexit because I was asked to tackle this, and it's about European LA landscape. So London is the biggest AI hub, and now we are kind of politically losing this hub, which can be a benefit for Paris and Berlin, but it also can be a downside because we're losing. So this is now open to everyone. What do you personally believe will mean Brexit? Will it benefit main continental Europe in the AI space, or will it mean we're losing our hold in contrast to Silicon Valley and China even more?
I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
Okay.
I think if you look at immigration, I think it will be harder for people that are, less well paid to move to London if this whole thing goes through. But for tech companies, I think they will still be totally able to attract talent from continental Europe to London. I don't think many people will worry about that so much.
Okay.
I completely agree. I think the way the media portrays Brexit here is a lot more negative than what I think the consequences will actually be. In terms of, so from a startup perspective, so I don't know how Brexit will affect the big corporations, but I think startups have the very unique position in that they thrive in uncertainty. As like the only business entity, they can actually use uncertainty to their advantage. I think really large institutions such as Imperial, Oxford, Cambridge will still continue to attract top talent, as will really large companies such as the Googles, the Facebooks. So I don't think London risks very much in terms of losing talent, and there is still a lot of capital in London and the UK in terms of investment. So I think that's also part of the reason why there's so many AI startups.
Well, I do believe also that, I agree with both of you. I think that Brexit won't affect the way that the ecosystem basically. I think that startups are much flexible to choose and pivot fast. So I think that in terms of AI companies and startups, I think they can be just quick, and they can come and they have the access to the capital also. And I don't know that what is going to be the Brexit. So I don't think that it's going to. It's not going to be very like immediate anything. So yeah, I think it's too early to say that.
So I don't have like a very strong perspective on exactly all the intricacies of Brexit. I'm just like a country bumpkin from Canada in a new world, but like none of the work we do exists in a vacuum. So like all of this exists in a political context. And so like the challenge I'd give to everyone who thinks that there's going to be no change is like, who is funding research? Why are they funding research? What is the political agenda, et cetera? And probably in the immediate term, some executive at Facebook who wants to hire some like white male engineer is going to be able to like ship them over with all the money in the world. But like in the long term, how money is allocated toward research, what are the problems they're solving, and these kinds of things will be determined by the political context in there. So like, I probably agree agree that in the 1-year term, 2-year term, there's probably not going to be a big difference with Brexit, but like in the 10-year term, I could absolutely see a world where some of these major research hubs in London are doing research that is not so politically great, from my personal left-wing political perspective.
But we're sitting here for your personal opinion. Okay, so I really get the appointment that we need to hurry up. So last question. You have here an audience of founders, of maybe researchers. Yes, I know I've seen researchers here, corporates and so far. What would be your wish, yes, for send out to the crowd if we want to have more AI and successful AI companies in Europe? So send out the wish, what do we need, what is our bottleneck and pain point currently? And don't say nothing, please.
So one thing I think is in Germany and in Europe in general is an issue is privacy. I mean, we're very careful with data, and personally I think that's great. But as a machine learning person, I like to have access to as much data as I can, and any restrictions in that. There were some suggestions in the previous panel here whether we could do that, create some sort of data commons in Europe where on the one hand we try to solve this privacy thing, but on the other hand make as much data available to startups as possible.
Okay.
I think they should just invest in homomorphic encryption so we can run machine learning algorithms on privatized data. Yeah. But the other thing I'll say just quickly is, so like very recently at SoundCloud in the news, there was like these layoffs and it's a really challenging time for the company and all this, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but what I will say is that the response from the sort of like startup and machine learning community has been like immensely massive and positive. And so like right now in Berlin, what's interesting is that there are tons of companies that are hiring machine learning talent and data scientists and investing in this. And I'd say the one thing that's kind of missing from this piece is that you have like 500 really small companies, which is great if you're okay with risk and like financially in a safety zone where you can take that risk. And there's not so much really large companies that are doing machine learning aside from Amazon and Microsoft and if you consider SoundCloud a large company, SoundCloud. So that's the one thing that like I'm really missing in Berlin. It's like a couple of really large machine learning based startups existing in here.
Mm-hmm.
So again, from a startup perspective, I think it's really important that people consider their career choices. So I think if you think about the global population and you think about all the smartest people in the world that are the most technically talented, capable, driven, it really matters how those people spend their time for everybody else as well, in terms of the amount of technological innovation, advancement that we can achieve on a global scale. And so I think if you think that you could one day be the founder of a successful AI, ML, whatever startup, it's really important that you pursue that career path to see whether you could be, because the opportunity cost of not pursuing that path is really, really high, whereas the cost of trying both in terms of time and money is relatively low. So I would encourage people to consider their career choices. And I'm not saying that everyone should start companies, because that's probably not true. But if you're one of the best people at doing what you do, then it's definitely something to consider.
So I just want to give a message about more focus on the diversity and openness. I think that it's important for anybody who wants to create a company or who wants to work on any field. AI can be also the field. Like, it's important to see how you're going to create the value and how you want to impact the whole ecosystem, and not only thinking about the short term and thinking, okay, everybody is doing like AI, and now AI is hype, and so we definitely need to do that. Also, companies that are like thinking that they need to, for example, acquire all the AI startups, and there's another issue that is, I think, is thanks to maybe high salaries in a big AI corporations, that there is a risk maybe that the small startups, they will lack of engineers, good engineers working on AI. And I think it goes back to the ambitions, as you said, that you should just be ambitious and think that you can create great things. Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much. Yes, that was our panel. We made it 30 minutes, so we have 10 minutes overdue, which is good. Yes, and I say thank you.